Hey, my name is Dr. Christopher Butler, and today we're going to be talking about live looping in a program called Ableton Live. So I'm going to show you a few tips and different setups in which you can start looping yourself. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So in Ableton Live, we have multiple ways of working. We have a session view here, which involves recording into clips on certain tracks. These clips can also then be activated by scenes. So on the master right here, we have scenes. Scene 1 will then activate anything to the left of it. So for example, clip 2 on track 1 here will be activated whenever I do scene 4 or scene 5 in session view. In addition, we have an arrangement view. This is a traditional digital audio workstation interface. This is probably what you're used to if you use Logic, Pro Tools, Reaper, anything like that. In this, we have a traditional timeline with bars on top. We have timing in seconds on the bottom. We also have automation, so we can automate anything. So right now I have the mixer, and I can automate the track volume if I hit that button and then kind of draw any sort of automation. Automation means that as this track goes through and it plays through, that if I look here in the mixer as far as volume, that is now automated with the shape that I drew into the timeline. Okay, so how do we set up a looper in Ableton Live? I'm gonna go to my browser here by clicking this arrow. I'm gonna go to Audio Effects, Looper. I can double click or drag it into the track. Either one works. In the looper, I have multiple buttons. I have a record button. Whenever I click that, it turns into an overdub button. And then once it's overdub, which means I'm recording audio on top of what I initially recorded, I can then hit play. And at this point, it's just gonna cycle back and forth between overdub and play. I also have a stop button up here. I have a clear button, which clears the looper of any sort of recorded audio. I have a speed button, which will take anything that you record into it down an octave or by any sort of semitone that you want. It will also play it faster or slower, hence the name speed. And I have a reverse button. So the reverse button means that the audio, when it plays back, is going to be played back in reverse. I also have the ability to take any sort of recorded clip, and if I simply stop this, I can take the loop I just created, drag it into a clip, and then play that and have it be its own loop. So you have the ability to extract the loops that you create and put it onto an audio track. So now that we have the looper set up, how do we access it? Well, one option is, of course, to simply be at your laptop. If you can run over here and hit a button, by all means do it. However, if you have some sort of MIDI interface, this is a MIDI Fighter Twister by a company called DJ Tech Tools. So this is actually meant for DJs doing some sort of parties or anything like that. However, it's really great because it has LED sensors here, so I can see the level of anything. I have a really nice click knob there, and I have multiple different channels. So anything here can be mapped in different ways using MIDI. I'm going to hit Control M on my keyboard. And anything blue now in Ableton is able to be mapped to this. So I'm going to map the record button to this button right here. In addition, I'm going to map the volume of the track to this knob. So I'm going to get two uses out of it. Exit out of the MIDI mapping mode. We can see here, record, overdub, play, and then I can then take the volume down as well. Again, multiple ways of interacting with Ableton, but typically most people use MIDI controllers. I should also mention you can use a simple keypad. So this costs $200. Drum pads or multi-pad can cost $500. Ableton's MIDI interface, which is called a push, costs $700 or $800. This keypad, which you can find a wireless option as well, costs $10. And to access that, instead of doing Control M, we do Control K, which means anything here that is now orange can be mapped to 1, 2, anything on this simple pad. Something that was really interesting to me was discovering that looping really coincided with the birth of minimalism at the San Francisco Tape Music Center with composers like Terry Riley and Steve Reich. Specifically in Terry Riley's case, he was the first composer to really come up with a concise and really, I think, beautiful solution to live looping, something he called the time lag accumulator. Of course, we know Reich was also inspired by these tape loops with other pieces of phasing in which two tape machines would play in different speeds. So as a nod to minimalism and using the Ableton Looper in a different way, here's my version of Piano Phase by Steve Reich using the Ableton Looper. So here's how we created Piano Phase in Ableton Live. I have one track here that's the metronome. That's just so you can hear the click in my ear. I wanted to bring that out. Instead of using live marimba for this explanation, I'm going to use two MIDI instruments that's going to work the same way as if we're using audio tracks. But right now I just have two grand piano sounds. The second track here is just what I would play with normally, so that's just playing in time with the project. I'm going to go ahead and collapse that. Track 3 is the looped part. So track 3 here, I give myself 1 bar to get ready. In bar 2, it is now automated to record and then to play back right after that bar. Which means that, and you'll discover this if you're doing any sort of live looping, that if you screw up that first initial loop, you're going to have to live with it. So make sure you don't screw up. In addition, the looper is set to not follow the tempo of the song. And this is a very important distinction here. Under tempo control, the default is set and follow song tempo. However, I'm setting it to none. That means it's going to take the original tempo of the loop that I've created, and it is now just going to continue that tempo no matter what. The reason we get the phase is because under the master, I did some slight automation as well. In bar 3, we go from a project tempo of 96 to in bar 3, a project tempo of 97. And so by moving ahead at 97 beats per minute, starting on bar 3 right after that initial loop, that's how we hear the initial phase. And so gradually over time, they go in and out of phase with each other until they're back into this interlocking 8th note relationship. So this is what that sounds like. Recording. Playback. Tempo changed to 97. So by taking the looper and making sure that it stays away from the tempo of the project, that's how we can work on phasing for the early music of Steve Reich. One major drawback of these early tape looping setups is the fact that it was really difficult to record rhythms perfectly in time. This is because instead of playing with a click track or metronome, I'm playing at which the speed the tape goes through the machine. In other words, I'd have to really estimate and gauge that my beat 1 is the same spot in the tape, and I really have no way to accurately keep time while doing that. Because of this, early tape looping setups are really great at creating ambient music and really interesting soundscapes. And so this is my first tip as far as unlocking the Ableton Looper, is the fact that we're going to take this major disadvantage of early tape looping setups, and we're going to see if we can create interesting soundscapes in the looper in Ableton, and we're going to forget about the metronome. So this is looping out of time in Ableton using 2 cymbals, a ride cymbal, and a hi-hat. So let's say you're going to create your own loop piece that features rhythmic patterns. That's something as percussionists we do really well. How can I use the looper in Ableton in creative and unique ways? Well, one thing I might suggest is instead of looping the same phrase links on top of each other, 2 bars of 4/4 or 1 bar of 4/4, why don't we have some conflict there? So for example, what if I recorded a pattern that's in 7/8 into a looper that's recording bars of 4/4? That essentially means that whenever that audio is overdubbed on top of what I previously recorded, it's going to come back in interesting and unique ways for the audience. So, a piece that does this really well is A Running Knot by David Skidmore. Without further ado, hope you enjoy. So we talked about looping in Ableton using the built-in looper. We then talked about automating the looper in arrangement view, which again looks like this, left to right. Now we're going to talk about just recording loops into clips in session view. So one way of doing that is simply clicking into the clip, activating it, and then hitting play. That completely works. Another way we could do that is if we MIDI map that one clip to a device. So I'm going to then have that one clip activated when I hit this button. Record. It will now record as long as I want until I hit this button again. So hit again. Stops recording on beat 1. And then we'll continue as long as I would like that to happen. Another way of recording into clips in Ableton Live is using a program called CliffX Pro. CliffX Pro is a plugin developed by a company called Isotonic Studios based out of the UK. It allows you to rename clips and to have the actual coding language control Ableton Live. So it's a way of controlling Ableton Live using titles of clips, which it takes a little bit of getting used to. However, we're going to look at track 1 here. And under track 1, it says play 1, waits to be, and then play 1 again. 2, play 1. So what that just did there is it played clip 1 on my track here. It waited 2 bars and then it played it again, which means it would stop recording and play it back. In addition, I could change that. Instead of play 1, what if I did stop 1? Record, bar 2, stop. So now it's not looping, but maybe I could bring it back at a different point. All right, so we know that scenes activate different clips horizontally. So you can see here I have another track that I opened up called CliffX Pro, and we're going to look at the automation in that. So one thing I have is a time signature change from 4/4 to 3/4. In addition, I have one for an accelerando that takes the tempo from 120 to 200 over 4 bars. I then have a mixing one which takes the volume of track 1 and takes it, basically fades it out over 4 bars. And then I unarm track 1 and then stop anything in that track. So let's see if I can show you how that works. Okay, record. I'm also going to change the time signature here. So now we're in 3/4. That top track is recording. It's stopped. I'm just going to have it play back just for fun. Go back to scene 3. Accelerando over 4 bars, now in 3/4 to 200. Scene 4. The volume of track 1 goes all the way to nothing, so it's completely faded out. Scene 5, unarm that track, which is this button right here, and stop any sort of playing. So there we have it. So this is CliffX Pro. It takes a little time to get used to, but it's the idea of kind of using different coding language in the specific titles of the clips, in which I can access that by hitting Control-R, or just simply right-clicking any clip and doing rename. But these simple commands will allow you to basically control any element of Ableton Live that you want. So that concludes my session here at PASIC 2020. Thanks so much for being here. I have to give a quick thank you to my sponsors, Innovative Percussion and Marimba One, for all their great support over the years. I have to thank PAS for inviting me here to be a part of PASIC 2020. I also have to thank Southern Illinois University at Carbondale for all their support and my great colleagues. I'm going to end today's clinic with a world premiere. This is a piece called Tricentric Space for marimba, vibraphone, conga, and live interactive electronics. Hopefully this shows you a little bit of what we talked about. There's some CliffX Pro, there's some looping, there's some audio effects. Everything is live, everything is different each performance. So anyway, hope you enjoy this. Thanks again so much for being here, and take care.